All right, everyone, welcome back to Nets in the Water. Very excited to have today Hannah Wiand with us. Very fun. Actually, the first guest who was like a secondary recommendation, which makes me even more excited to actually get to know you and get to talk to you today. So thank you so much for coming on.
I'm super excited to be here.
This is awesome. So Hannah is the campus minister over at St. Pete Catholic High School, went to St. Leo University, Life Teen Missionary, overall beast. You said you levitate in prayer once or twice a week usually.
Yeah.
Bilocate
Maybe
twice a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's good. I mean, usually stats are a little bit higher for podcast guests.
Yeah.
But we made Nick Tannis recommended it. We made an exception. Really excited to have you on. So, I mean, to just jump right into it, maybe a little bit more about your story. How did you even get into your faith? Like, how did you get to where you are right now?
Yeah, I think, if I look back, I think there's like several different building blocks throughout my life, right? Like I wouldn't say there was a set time where I was like, oh yeah, this is it. But I think it was like several key people that kind of played a role. And so growing up, I was brought up in the faith, and I went to Catholic school my whole life, which was really such a gift. Even throughout college, I was able to go to Catholic universities. And so, yeah, I think just like through that and through continuing to just further my Catholic education. But I guess it really wasn't until college that I decided, okay, this is really what I want. This is really what I feel called to do. I feel called to kind of invest myself more in the faith, and ministry was really all that made sense to me. I wasn't really that much interested in like actual careers. I have other things I'm interested in, but like other things, like I was like, I really don't, which is funny. I was like, I really don't want to be a teacher. Both my parents were in education. Gotcha. So I was like, I ended up being in a Catholic school, but, there wasn't anything else that I was like, I don't want to do marketing, or no offense, or, business or anything like that. Right. But it was like, that was the thing that just kind of fired me up, and I really couldn't understand why. And so as I was in college, and just, I think like the personal investment of I was able to have two amazing campus ministers, one for 2 years and another for 2 years, that just really showed me investment, and just brought me in, and like was very intentional with like journeying with me. And I think it was like through those years, and then through being formed very deeply at Life Teen, that I was like, okay, yeah, this is it, and this is what I want to do, ministry in some capacity for the rest of my life, because it's really what I get fired up about.
Wow.
So
yeah, so it sounds like though within that there was a big role of, like you said, the personal investment from those two people.
Yeah.
They're college campus ministers at St. Leo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they just, they're, what do you mean by personal investment even? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, like they just showed an interest. Like it was, St. Leo's is not a huge school, so it was very small, in the Catholic community was smaller. And so, when you go to mass, either daily mass or mass on Sunday, like they stand out there and they greet you. You cannot walk away without being greeted. And so, right, like it was that personal investment that I think there was part of me that was like, I would love to kind of maybe journey a little bit deeper, but I'm like, I'm not gonna ask that. I'm not gonna approach that. But they approached me, and I was like, oh, sweet. Okay, cool. And so I think just like that seeking out, and like the intentionality of them, like really going out of their way to and showing the desire to get to know me and to invest their time in my spiritual development, as well as the rest of the community. Like, there were several people within that community that also, saw me and really intentionally loved me and called me higher and shared these things, these truths about the faith that I had no idea about. And, just kind of showed me what living, like, I think in that time I was really showed what living like an authentic Christian life looked like. Like very key authentic. Like all of the people who played a role were so authentic in their own belief and conviction, and just were so like fun and weird and amazing, like, you know what I mean, in the best way. In the best way.
Totally.
That it was very attractive. And so I think then, through that personal investment, once I was brought in, and there were people within that community, like, yes, it was those two campus ministers, but it was also these older, upperclassmen, who kind of, was that personal investment and just showed an interest in me and kind of wanted to bring me in. It was such a gift.
And that's led you to where you are now as a campus minister at a high school, where I can only assume you're doing the same thing that was done for you to bring you to the Lord. Like, you're now doing.
Well, and let me back up. I can't even believe, forgive me if she listens to this, but my high school campus minister was, like, let me just go right to college. No, my high school campus minister, she showed that investment. She was probably the first person that I was like, if I look back now, and I actually had a moment in my first year as campus minister at St. B Catholic where I was in prayer and I just was like, oh my gosh, we call her KB. I was like, I'm doing KB's job. Like, this is crazy. Because she had such an impact on me that I don't even know that she knew that she had. But she would always tell me, like, you're going to be a saint one day. And she was very like, and I was like, no, you know, because I was like, I'm in high school, and, you know, but she was just so affirming in that and just really called out my gifts. And so like when, you know, it was time to kind of like decide that career path or whatever, there really wasn't much of a, like I said, a decision, because it was like this call of like, well, this has really been affirmed and this is what I feel like my gifts are aligned to do. But that wouldn't have been, if it wouldn't have been for her, I can't believe I forgot to say that. If it wouldn't have been for her really showing me that personal investment in high school and just being present to me, and just loving me so well, that set up the, like, that was kind of like the first step to then these other people kind of coming and falling in line.
And was this at St. P Catholic? Did you go there for high school? Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I think also the stepping stones there lends itself really nicely to just the journey of being evangelized and coming to the Lord. Like, no one person along that personal investment path, like, had the one moment. It was just like they continued to draw you in, which is what the Lord was doing. Like, it's cool that among all those key figures in your life, the actual figure was Jesus through all three of them. And like, it's like these three blips on a radar, but there's a through line above it all that's just like, well, Jesus did it. Yeah. And he just managed to do it through three different people at three different times of your life.
Yeah. They were very much vessels. I think a lot of times, you know, and that's probably why I forgot to even mention high school, because I think a lot about college of like, that's where I was a missionary in this, but it really did start with that. Like, she just allowed herself to be a vessel of the Lord's love and intentionality. And then it's kind of paved the way, like you said, like for these building blocks of these other people to kind of come into my life and do the same thing in the exact way that I needed it. So my college campus minister for my first 2 years, like, she was the perfect person for where I was at then, you know, and then when I came for my junior and senior year, my other campus minister was the perfect person for where I was at in that time in my life. And it was just, I mean, incredibly blessed and anointed by the Lord.
Do you think them being perfect for where you were in your life? Like, do you think that was something that they were like aware of where you were at and kind of tried to meet you where you were at? Do you think it was just providence of the Lord that they were like that? What do you think caused that?
I think that the Lord, I laugh because I just think, like, I think it was very much anointed by the Lord. And I think that for where I was at spiritually, my first 2 years, like my first 2 years, my campus minister, she was very much like I was a little, how do you say, stubborn would be a word. Okay. So I was very like, I kind of just like, I just want to do what I want. Like, I don't really understand why we have to do this or why this or whatever. And I would kind of push back, you know, but she would push back too in a great way, like, you know? And so, so I think that like, that was what I needed, is for her very, like, her strong personality that like her strong personality in like a loving way of just like, she was in love with the Lord and she knew, like, she could see through my crap pretty much, you know? And so that's just kind of how she sought me out, is like, she knew that I needed, like, her personality was great for that time because she was able to like kind of share the hard truth in a way that, like, if you want to sit here and go back and forth all day, we can, like, you know, and it was, and sometimes we did, you know, but it was so helpful. Like, it was so helpful. And it just was like, I was like, okay, like, this chick's like relentless. Like, she's not going to let up. Like, she's pretty legit. And so there was that. And then when I moved into my, like I said, my junior and senior year, when I really, I think really started actually having a prayer life and really taking that seriously, knowing kind of what that, you know, starting to form that, knowing what that looks like, is when my other campus minister came in, who had a background with Focus and, like, you know, the one-on-one accompaniment and discipleship and all that kind of stuff. And that's where I was like, I no longer was like at this surface level, but just was like kind of like, okay, let's go a little bit deeper. And she really met me there and we really related on a lot of things. And she showed me the love and the mercy of Jesus. Like there were several times that I remember leaving and being like, wow, like I just encountered just like the love and the gentleness of the Lord through her. So it was very, I would say very anointed. Just
providence.
Yeah.
How did those experiences shape the way that you now minister to students at SPC? How'd that happen?
Yeah. Gosh, I think that it just showed me, like if I look back at especially like those 3 women and the people around me at those times in my life, like those really formative times, they showed me like just how important it is to just be present to the person in front of you and to be intentional with like just seeking them out. And just honestly just having fun. Like we just had a lot of fun too. Like it wasn't always like we were having these like to the depths conversations, you know, but we just had a lot of fun, and they like were very intentional. And so when I, took this job at St. P Catholic, I was like, I just desire, and I say this all the time. I say it's in every presentation I've ever given to a parent or to like, I say it all the time, is like my mission became one, that each student would know that they are seen, known, and loved first and foremost by Christ, and then secondly by the rest of us at St. P Catholic. And the second is that holiness is attainable for them, because I think that that's something that we oftentimes can think is very far off, like holiness is not attainable, especially when we're in high school and stuff. And so I want them to know that. But that first piece is like, that's because that's what happened to me. And I was like, and I have seen the fruit, and I have seen, the reality of John 10:10 of like, I came so that you may have life and have it more abundantly. It's like I've been shown that through these pivotal people that have allowed the Lord to work through them.
And you're just itching to share it now.
Then I'm like, I just desire for that for them so hard, like that sometimes I don't even know what to do. Like, I just want that for them. And so that shaped a lot of how I do ministry, is just that personal investment, intentionality, and just like having fun, like that lighthearted spirit with them is, I think, really crucial.
Now, how do you keep it personal while still doing it like for everyone? Because I feel like there's a level of me, like when I'm seeing ministry, where it's like, and it's just the cynical side, this isn't God, but still like it's there, where it's like, oh well, like like Hannah would say that to anyone, like Hannah would hang out with anyone. So like, how do you keep it personal while still doing it for an entire campus of people?
Yeah, so they're very practically, I think, are things that I try to do is, one, I try to just remember their name and to say their name. So if I'm, walking past you in the hallway, hey, John, how are you? Just like kind of thing, or just as they're, especially this past, 2 weeks when they've been coming back to campus, just like remembering their names and being like, hey, so-and-so, how's it going? And I think that like, because when our name is said, it kind of demands a response. And it's like, that's whether we realize it or not, it's like, oh, I'm known by this person. And so like, even though I've never met you before today, right? When you greeted me at the front door and you said, hey, Hannah, how are you? I was like, you feel known. It's like, okay, I'm known here, not just like, hey, how are you? It's like, does this guy know my name, or does, and so I think that very simply, like just to say their name as they're walking in the hallway and just say hi, is still, that's personal to them. Yeah. But then I also think like remembering is really important. And like remembering things that they share, even if not even like, again, not even in a deep way, but just what they like to do. And just to kind of remember that, so that I can kind of bring that back up in a conversation, because it's like, like you said, oh, Hannah would say that to anybody, but it's like, okay, but you're the only one who had that story that you told me, so it's like, and I'm going to try my best to remember that and then recall it, or check in with you of like, hey, I had this test, I have this test today, and I don't know, I'm really stressed. Okay. Later in that day, hey, how was that geometry test? So just kind of like remembering the things that they say, so as to continue to build that personal relationship with them, because it's unique to them. Or, just, I think just showing up for them, whether that be in their theater performances or their games or whatever, and just like letting them know, like, dude, I'm going to be there and I'm going to be screaming my head off, And
I mean, that also feel like lends itself to the fact of like building a personal relationship with someone is not like, it's not just like blips on a radar where it's like, oh, we had lunch this day and I didn't talk to them, and then we caught up over dinner. It's like, no, it's like a constant, steady, like the margins of like, it's not just like, oh, I keep it personal because I have lunch with students every once in a while. It's like, no, like every day there are things to do. Yeah. And like, that's the hard part, I think, at least. Like for me, I mean, remembering names for me is an uphill battle at best. Like it's just, it takes such intentionality that it sounds like you have.
Yeah. And it's something that like I always desire to grow in, you know, because I'm not, by no means am I perfect at it, but I've just seen that it's things like that that kind of, you know, can almost take them by surprise of like, oh, you remembered that? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? If I like
Totally.
recall something, it's like,
Totally.
yeah, I do, because you're important to me and you shared that, you know, and whether they recognize that or not, you know, maybe they will, but if not, that's okay. We're still going to keep on.
I just spent a few weeks over the summer on pilgrimage as a chaperone with my high school. And it was definitely like, I had to check myself in those moments of like, crap, what did that guy say? Like his favorite music was, like, what was this? And like trying to make it constant. Cause it's not, especially when it's like, for this trip at least, it's like, it's a small group. It's 8 dudes, 2 weeks going through Europe. Yeah. So I have to kind of run myself like, yo, dude, you're in Europe. This is cool. But like, you got to go talk to those guys. Yeah. Like, I know you want to hang out with your friend right now, but you have to go talk to those guys. Yeah. And like, trying to keep it constant is so, it feels like a juggling act sometimes. And maybe that's also like, I'm sure you'd have a better perspective on this. Like, how do you couple, like, it takes personal effort from Hannah, but it also takes cooperation with God, that like God's the one doing the work. How do you balance, like, you have to put in effort, but it's also not you doing it? Yeah, very much so. And the times where, and this happens all the time because by no means am I perfect. But the times where I start to think that it's my ministry and not his is where we get a little chaotic, you know, and things get a little, it's like Peter in the boat, where it's like when he started to look around at the waves is when he started to sink. And it's like, because he took his eyes off Jesus. So if I take my eyes off Jesus, or if I, you know, am no longer like bringing him into these places, then it's like, oh, these waves are huge and it feels a little bit chaotic, you know? But I think first and foremost, just like having, you know, continuing to try to grow in my own personal relationship with the Lord so that I can be available and I like am able to continue to know, you know, as best I can, his voice and the promptings of the Holy Spirit for what, you know, how do you want me to respond to this situation, or what do you want me to say? Because a lot of times too, sometimes the kids don't know how to receive that, you know? And so there was a time, on a retreat where, it was this group of sophomores, and this one girl had just kind of like talked to me really quickly in passing, but then I was praying for her in adoration, and afterwards I was just like pulled her aside and I was like, I just like want you to know. And I said, in prayer, I was like, I just want you to know how much the Lord loves you, like, and how proud he is of you, you know? And I was like, it was a little bit uncomfortable because I'm like, I don't know if as a sophomore, I don't know if she can really receive that, but I'm like, I just can feel the Holy Spirit stirring of like, you know, share that with her, you know? And so I'm like, I don't know what she did with that, but you know what I mean? So it's things like that where I think like maintaining that spiritual life and having those other people with you on the journey that are like outside of work that allow me to continue to, you know, be present to the Lord and be present to the kids and like work with him, you know, not be like, okay, Lord, like, go ahead and take the day off. Like, I got this ministry, but like, no, we need to work together because like, I cannot do this on my own. Totally. You know? Yeah. How do you keep yourself in check during that? Oh, that's a good question. I think it started with the conviction from serving as a missionary in college of like how important daily prayer is. That if I don't do it or I miss it, it's like, oh gosh, you know what I mean? It feels a little bit like off. And so I try my best to continue to cultivate my own personal prayer life. But with that, like having these friends on the journey with me who I can, you know, like I just had dinner recently with a friend who she has had a lot of experience in ministry. So we're able to have that kind of conversation about ministry, but also, you know, hey, how are you doing? Like, how is your heart? How is your prayer life? So it's like knowing that I have that accountability is incredibly important. And I think that's how I kind of, keep myself in check of knowing like, and also, and this can be a little bit dangerous, but like also knowing, right, like if I'm inviting these kids to pray, but I'm not praying, like, I don't want to ever do that. Like I always say, I don't ever want to ask them to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. And so I'm like, and that can be right. You can hold yourself to a very high standard, but like to think about like, okay, I want to continue to be a model for them, and not in a prideful way, but for them to know and to have a conversation of like, well, can I give them a tip on how to pray every day? I can't if I'm not praying every day, you know? So I don't know if that answers your question. No, I mean, it totally does. And like, there's no right or one answer for it. It's like, I feel like that's the eternal struggle of like being an evangelist, of being on mission, of being an educator, like in the education space, is like, you're an educator. You give you give students knowledge, you care for them, you love them, you learn their name, but then you have to go home and look in the mirror and be like, wow, God did good work today. Knowing full well how tired you are, how much effort you put in that day, like how much was going on, you still have to look in the mirror and be like, oh, good. God really came in today, which is like, it feels like it'd be so hard. I have a hard time doing it when I have to like make my bed, and I'm like, like it's just such a difficult thing. And then also to not go on the other end of things where it's like you refuse to acknowledge the good work done through you, which is like, can be a good thing. Like, it's not bad to be happy that a student prayed with you that day, or that like a student decided to get baptized after a conversation. Like, it's not bad, but it's so, I don't know how to do it. I get like passionately confused because it's like, where is the balance?
It is such a balance, especially because like, I am very blessed with a very affirming community, and like the people that I work with and in a larger community. I think a lot of that can come too from, you know, I went to high school there, and I've kind of been in the area. So it's like, you know, people come to St. Pete Catholic, which is great, and they see things that we're doing, and they're very affirming, you know, of not just myself by any means, but of by everything that's going on at St. Pete Catholic. And it's, you know, you want to receive that, but you want to receive it humbly, you know, and be like, but it honestly is a little bit of extra work to be like, actually you're right. Like, you know, actually you're right. Like, there are good things, like, because we can be so critical of our own ministry and be like, this can be better, and I can be doing this better, and I should be doing this as a person, and this, that, and whatever, you know, and you can really go down that to where it can make it hard to receive those things. And so I think that really trying to, when someone says that, to be like, you know, thank you, like I received that, you know, and just try to.
We're allowed to say thank you, and people compliment ministry. Like, it's not
brush it off and be like, oh, no, like, you know,
I didn't even do anything. And it's almost annoying. It's like, what are you talking about? You didn't do anything. Like, you spent all summer journeying with my kid. You just spent all year learning their name. Now they want to get baptized from conversations with you. And I'm going to tell you, like, thank you for that good work. And you're like, oh, no, I didn't even do anything. It's like, come on. And it is, like you said, it is very much a back and forth and a balance. And some days are easier than others. But it really is a gift to have such a supporting and affirming community that I know that I'm not the only space on campus where they're encountering the Lord. Like, there are other people, and not just even the theology teachers, but our administration, our other teachers on campus. Like, I think that plays such a huge role, and is honestly such a weight off my shoulders that I'm not the only one. And I'm really grateful for that, because the fact of the matter is I can't reach every kid, and I'm not going to be able to relate to every kid. But there are other people on campus who are able to do that, who I'm incredibly grateful for their witness. And especially with administration, I feel like so often evangelization feels like a bottom up effort. Where it's like, we need to rise up and bring it up. But for it to be in a good Catholic school where it's now a top down effort is like so much more freeing and easier. And you have the resources. I mean, I think it's like my time in high school, even like the fact that campus ministry gets a budget like they do, that they get to do retreats, that they like, the school says they matter, and like they put their money where their mouth is. Does so much for the ministers as well. 'Cause now you're empowered to, rather than spend time stressed about this or that or this administration, you're allowed to just love the kids and care about them. It seems so freeing.
It is very freeing, and it's very refreshing to, you know, when I go to daily mass after school, that our president and our principal are often there, that the kids see them there. They lead us in prayer, and it's not just a prayer that they're reading off a paper, which is totally fine, you know, and sometimes, and that happens, but like, that they're able to pray, and they're able to, when they talk to the kids, they talk to them from a personal experience, and that they're Christ-centered themselves. And I think that has played such a huge role. And then having even some of our administration be on the retreats, the kids love seeing their humanity and love seeing like, oh wow, like, you know, this is so-and-so just like with us hanging out, you know what I mean?
Play frisbee with this teacher.
It's incredible. It's incredible. And I think, having that Christocentricity from the top down is absolutely incredible. And I feel very, very blessed and very supported by our administration. And I know, you know, even recently, like, our freshman retreat is tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
And
you're here doing this right now?
Yes. You
wow.
know,
I'm honored. I feel like more pressure now.
No, not at all. But so like, just emailing them saying, hey, would you be able to be here to help out with, X, Y, and Z? Yeah, I'd love to support you in any way. Let me know if you need anything else. It's like, gosh, I know, because I know you're not just sitting in your office twiddling your thumbs all day, right? Like you have things to do, job, but it's like, it shows like that I find it refreshing and encouraging that they see value in the things that I'm doing. And of course, not just myself, but our other, theology teachers who help plan the retreats and are present and stuff like that, is like, they really see value and really support us. And that is really, really a gift and very freeing.
Yeah. Christocentricity is a really fun word.
Yeah, it is.
I just really enjoyed that.
It is. It just came out of my mouth. I
really enjoyed it.
I don't know if it was. It's really a big word.
We're gonna cut down the podcast to make it sound like you're saying things totally different. Every time you said perfect. I'm by no means perfect, I'm gonna cut out the by no means.
Yeah,
you're
I
gonna
am.
say I'm perfect.
Yeah, no, I am.
Okay.
No.
See, and now we're good.
Yeah,
now we have confirmation. It's easier for the editor now.
Yeah.
You just did him a favor.
Yes.
I'm gonna to bring it back a little bit. You mentioned earlier this goal that the students are seen, known, and loved.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What is that a Hannah special? Where does that come from? What does it mean? What does it look like? I'm sure I just asked you a question that could take 3 hours to answer.
Yeah, we can sit back and have a 4-hour conversation.
That's
about
great.
That.
I'm paid hourly, so we can take as long as we need.
Awesome. I'm just here to help you out. Yeah, I think it is not by no means. I did make it up. You don't have to edit that out. No, I'm just kidding. It's not something that I made up. I think it's just something that I find very important that I've heard, throughout my own journey in my own life of like, seen, known, and loved kind of thing is I think thrown out a lot, in the religious lingo. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I just think it is so crucial, because if I don't have that personal relationship, or I don't allow you to know that you're seen, known, and loved, because the reality is Jesus, sees, knows, and loves us to a degree that we're never able to understand.
Yeah.
Correct.
He perfected all three
right
when he died for us. And
right.
It's like, well, I'm just doing that to a lesser extent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I think that in ministry, I don't know, I think I would be bold enough to say that, like, if we are not showing them kind of tangibly what that looks like, especially in this early stage of like being in high school, it might make it a little bit more difficult to be like, well, I don't really even know what being seen, known, and loved means, but you're telling me that God does that for me. Like, do you know what I mean? So I think that like us being able to tangibly, again, work with God because it's really not us seeing, knowing, and loving them, right? It's Christ through us. And so, and they might not be able to put language to that or recognize that, but for us, it's like, that's the reality. Like for me, that's the reality of like, being seen, known, and loved is just, that's Christ. Like Christ desires to see you, to know you, and to love you. And he does, but we don't always know that. We can't always recognize that. And so I think that being able to kind of give them a tangible experience, and again, never done perfectly, but giving them some sort of tangible experience so that maybe later on down the road, like I wouldn't have been able to express that in high school. I knew my campus minister meant so much to me. I love that lady with all of my heart. Yeah. But going back, I'm like, she really allowed me to feel seen, known, and loved, like the way that Christ sees, knows, and loves me. And I think that's kind of it.
What does it look like, to break it down like part by part, to tangibly see, to tangibly know, to tangibly love the students? So what's the difference between the three also? I don't really, because like see and know feels very similar.
Yeah, I think that if I could bring it back to my previous example, I think to see them is to just say their name. To see them is to, hey, so-and-so, hey, whatever. Just to allow them to know that they are seen by me. To know them is, I think, when that remembering comes in and that conversation comes in, because then we can recall that conversation later on, and to love, I think, is just to, when I think about it, I think to just be joyful with them and to just celebrate them. Like there have been particular students that the Lord has just really given me, I think, a special heart for, where I'm like, gosh, I just desire to celebrate you. I don't say this to them because I think it would scare the crap out of them, but the Lord I just feel so called to celebrate you and to love you and to show up at your games and to just make a big deal and to just be very intentional. And so I think that that's where that love comes in, of like, even just, I don't know, like when they share something with you, I just got into college, or I just grinded out this essay that I was really struggling with, or whatever it is, just to celebrate that, I think is where that love can come in, of just rejoicing with them, you know, and just in celebrating these little things. And with the whole, like, love is so huge, right? But I think a big part of it too is like just like calling out their goodness and affirming them is where that known and loved really can come together, because it's like, wow, I feel seen, that she's like affirming, you know, this thing. Like if they, you know, are talking about how they're so busy and they're trying to balance everything, and just being like, you're doing, like, I see that you're doing a great job. Like, and I know that it's not always easy because you have 60,000 things going on, but like, you're really killing it, you know. And just really like something so simple like that is like, oh gosh, like, wow, you know, okay, I do feel like I feel seen in what I'm doing. Like, I feel known because we've had this conversation before, and she kind of knows, she knows where I'm coming from, or she knows where I'm at, or whatever it may be. Or even if it's our first conversation, you know, just kind of investing in that, and then just feeling loved in the celebration and the joy, and just being like, oh, I'm so proud of you, or, you know, you're doing a great job, or whatever it may be.
And it's only once you do those three things, I feel like, that you can begin to even offer correction on the other side of the evangelization process. Like, if before you see, know, and love a student, you just start telling them like, you know, you have to stop going out and drinking. Then, like, who cares? Like, you have no capital, you have no relational capital to say that to a student. Right. But once you see, know, and love them, all of a sudden you have. Right. It's really interesting, because it's like, I'm all over the place sometimes. Whoa. I was peeking. Okay. I'm all over the place sometimes. But because like seeing, knowing, and loving them is both the foundation of the evangelization, but is also the structure of it. Which is just, it's so interesting, because like, you can't do anything until you do it, but also like, as you continue to build the relationship, you continue to see, know, and love them better and more, and to a greater extent. Exactly.
I think it is very foundational, especially because, like, a lot of times I think that they don't, you know, like I've experienced with them of like they're asking questions about prayer or about the faith or whatever it may be, and I really try to bring it down to like, I'm huge on practicals, because I think that, like I said, we can overcomplicate so much, and it's like, a prayer, like having a prayer life doesn't mean that you need to go do a holy hour in the chapel every single day. It can be 5 minutes before you go to bed. It can be 10 minutes when you wake up in the morning. It's like incorporating these, you know, but I think that to just like go off the jump and start talking about like, you need to have a prayer life and you need to be taking this more seriously, whatever. It's like, I don't really want to like receive all that and take that in, because it really just sounds like you're telling me what to do. It doesn't exactly sound like an invitation, right? But it's like, okay, I know that Miss Wiand, you know, sees, knows, and loves me. And again, and maybe they can't put the language to it, but I know that I have a relationship with her. Totally. And it's like, okay, so now I can maybe ask these hard questions that I wouldn't, you know, maybe just ask in the middle of my theology class, or I can share this thing that I might not just like share in a small group or whatever it may be. And then like, you know, again, in my response, just like having their best interest in mind and sharing these very practical things of like, this is what you can do, and not just like, well, the Lord desires a relationship with you. Yes, he does. But how can we enter into that? Like, how can we, you know, how can I encourage you to pray? Or, you know, I talked to the girls last year at this retreat about their belovedness, and just recognizing their belovedness in the small, tangible ways every day. And I'm like, text your friend. Call it out for your friend. Write it down in the notes section of your phone 3 ways at the end of each day that you received your belovedness or recognized it, whether that be a sunset, a good cup of coffee, like you saw a dolphin in the water. Those are all 3 ways I see my belovedness. So I'm just talking about myself. But like, you know what I mean? But then it's like, wow, okay, on these really hard days, I can look back at that list and be like, these are the ways that the Lord has loved me in these very small, not these huge grand, he does, right? In these huge grand ways, but it's in these small little things. And so I think, but that conversation is a little bit hard to have when you don't first have that, you know, relationship where they feel seen, known, and loved, and safe. Totally. You know,
how does it look to do that, particularly as an educator? Because like, I feel like there's such a difference between how you see, know, and love like a friend outside of the classroom in your day to day versus a student in school, but not to a lesser extent in school, but just very different. What does that look like?
So I think I told you this when we had our first meeting, but I absolutely love working with high schoolers, but I don't, and I should never say never, but I never felt called to really work in a parish. It's still working with high schoolers, but I'm like, the school day, like, they have to be there. It's great.
It's a captive audience.
It's like they have to be there. So we'll just take that and kind of run with that, And I think that, just the opportunity to being in a school and an education standpoint offers such a unique role, and youth ministers at a parish have this ability as well. But to see them day in and day out, like I see them 5 days a week, to see really like you really can see the highs and the lows. It gives you that unique opportunity, but it also gives you the opportunity to show up for them, which I think is huge, to show up at their events, at their games, at their if they're giving a presentation, like it gives you that opportunity to be present to them in all these different aspects of their life, and not just like in one section. Again, I'm not at all dogging on parish youth ministry, because it's so important and so necessary, and they help me out a lot. Yeah. But I think being in a school gives you that opportunity to really see them, 7:30 to 3:30 every single day, 5 days a week, to just really like see the ebbs and flows and see all the things that they, what I mean, that they go through, or be, equipped with what's going on in the school community, and how can I prepare them for this, or how can I be, present to them in this. And I don't know if that makes sense, but I think that's where totally the education part is really, is for all intents and purposes really clutch, because it's like I am able to just be present at these different things that are happening in real time in their life, and just show them that, I support and I care for them.
I mean, it's an apostolic playground at the high school. It's just like, you're just right there. It's amazing. Now,
it's the best.
How have you seen, because like, I mean, you're a campus minister, so it's your full-time job to see, know, and love these students. Have you seen any particular teachers at your school, administrators, do it very well? I mean, I'm sure you have, but like, and how do they do that? Like, how do they manage to be a teacher and also be a campus minister? Like on the side almost.
No, the campus ministry is not just one job for me, but a lot of people help in that. I think I've seen it very tangibly in, again, them showing up for the kids is awesome. Them engaging with them. So maybe they're, throwing the football with them or bumping the volleyball with them, just to kind of have fun and kind of be with them in the day to day. But I think too, just seeking them out and just being a space for them, because they also have the advantage of, they see the kids for typically like an hour and a half, every other day. And so they're able to really build that relationship where, it offers, like, that amount of time offers, the opportunity to have that personal relationship. And then, like, I've seen where kids stay after in the classroom and just talk to the teacher, or they have that personal relationship, or they really like their teaching style, or maybe they've shared something that they resonate with, and then they go and they start to, talk to that teacher, and they start to build that relationship. And so that is incredibly helpful. I think of one teacher in particular who really, who really does that well, and is a very safe place for students. And then we'll like, call them into, you want to come to daily mass with me? Come sit next to me. You know what I mean? And it's great, because it's like, we've built that relationship, they have that trust, and then there's the invitation. And so I think that I've seen, that's just one example, but I've seen a lot of our teachers really lean into that, walking with them in the hallways, just, like I said, showing up to their events, whatever it may be, and just kind of taking that personal interest in their life, or if a student shares something and they kind of resonate, to have that conversation. And I think it's been really cool to see that as well.
How do you not get just tired? Just straight up, like bluntly. Like, it just feels like every time I talk to an educator, it's like, dang, there's so much going on, and there's so many like balls to juggle for your job, of like the administration, the paperwork, the computer, any of that garbage. And then like, you also manage to get out of bed every day and give these kids your heart. Like, how the heck do you do that?
We are tired. Any educator that says that they're not tired, I don't know. I want to come and shake their hand and say, teach me. No, I mean, you got to hit snooze every now and then. For me, it's a daily occurrence. But it's like, you are tired. You are tired, because it is. But I think that we are continually fueled by, by number one, by the grace of the Lord. Like I said, going back to that personal prayer, like we are fueled by that. But we're honestly, if you ask these educators, like, especially I'm thinking of like the teachers at our school, like they're fueled by love for their kids. And they're fueled by the love of what they're doing. And they've been personally impacted by the subject that they teach, and they have a personal interest in it. And God bless them for that, because that, you know what I mean? Like, we all have our different thing that we do, and that the Lord has given us the gift to be able to share. And I think that desire to hand on, you know, in the similar that we talk about the faith, like we can talk about social studies, right? Or history. It's like, I have really been impacted by learning about history, and I love it so much, and I just want to share that love with you. You know what I mean? And so I think that they're fueled by, you know, their love for the kids, you know, that they have, and the personal relationship that they're able to have. But I would also say, and I really don't want to speak on behalf of them. They might watch this and be like, that is not true. No, I'm just kidding.
We'll have them on.
Yeah,
we'll
right.
show them the clip and then see if they have any beef. Yeah.
No, but I think that they are fueled for the love of the kids, and the love of the mission, and the love of the subject that they're teaching, and to be able to share that with the kids, because they're not in it for a paycheck, you know? And so it's like, it is fueled by the heart, I would say. It is very much fueled by the heart.
It's very inspiring for me to see the fire and the zeal of educators, and just like how to just keep going. And it takes such a leaning on the Lord that it's like so clear to me that like you have a relationship with the Lord. You care about the Lord outside of just like your job or your day to day. Like there's something deeper that without it, like it wouldn't even be possible to live.
Very true. That's very true. I like, because you know, I say this, but it's like, you know, if my job is supposed to like allow kids to have an encounter with Christ, but I don't know Christ, how am I supposed to talk to them about someone who I don't know? You know what I mean? And it's like, I can sit in a theology class and I can know about him, you know, and I can rattle off facts. To you. You know, Jesus did ministry for 3 years, and he did miracles and all this stuff. And that stuff is great, you know, and can help in your personal life, in your personal prayer life. But when that head to heart knowledge, you know, comes together, I think that's where it becomes powerful, because it's like, yes, I know all these things and I can rattle off these facts to you. And that's great, because if somebody asked me about you, I could tell them facts about you. Oh, he works at, you know, this is where he works and this is what he does and whatever. But it's like, until I really get to know you, I can't really share with them about you, you know what I mean? And like who you really are, you know? And so I think that that's really like, we can't do ministry and we can't do these things unless we really know who Jesus is. Like if Jesus is supposed to be in our classroom, we have to know the person who we're trying to bring into our classroom, you know? And so I think that that's where that personal relationship and the you know, personal prayer life really comes into play, because it's like, yeah, I can tell you about him, but I don't, you know, if I know these things and theologically have this knowledge, but if I don't have that heart relationship with him, I really can't tell you like who he is, you know? Yeah.
Knowing about God is not knowing God.
Correct.
Which is difficult. It takes much more effort to know someone than to know about them, I feel like. Yeah. Now, as we're coming towards somewhat of the end, I want to give plenty of time for this. You said you love practicals.
Sure.
What is Hannah's however many step guide to seeing, knowing, and loving students well?
I don't know. I think it's very simple. Like I said, you know, earlier, I think it's showing an interest, showing interest in them, doing your best to know their name and to learn their name. And that's really hard sometimes for a lot of people. And I'm honestly grateful, like, and not in a prideful way, but I'm very grateful that I can remember their names, because this would be really hard if it was, because there's 400 and some kids, right? And so like, I think just really trying your best to like, to build that relationship with them through just, you know, saying hi to them, and saying their name when you see them in the hallway. And then I think, which is something that I often struggle with, is just going out of your comfort zone to have those conversations with them, even if it's just like, hey, how was your weekend? Hey, you know, how's your day going? What are you looking forward to? This, that, you know, just to kind of, you know, have that conversation so that then later on you can remember that. And then I think the biggest thing is just like loving them and just allowing them to know that you love them and you delight in them and you are just joyful to interact with them, and it's a gift to interact with them. You know, so I think that just kind of allowing them to know these things, and I think that just comes from again, like the grace of the Lord and encountering them right where they're at, because they're in a really unique place in their lives where, you know, they're looking at all these different places to, you know, tell them who they are, you know. And it's like, you know, when you just are able to, like, it's like authentic, to have that authenticity, I think is really what it comes down to, is huge. So I don't really have like a step guide, but I would just say, like, to know and remember their name, to engage them in a conversation, and then just to love and celebrate and delight in them, because they need it. Like, they really need it. And do that in an authentic way, I guess.
Yeah. Now, somewhat on the practical side, how do you balance a personal relationship with the students of like intentionality and closeness and care and love, while still being prudent of like teacher student boundaries, like that sort of stuff? How do you do that?
Yeah, there's such a prudence there for sure. I think it's, you can invest in someone's life without needing to like go to the 10th degree, right? Like you can allow someone to feel seen, known and loved and invested in without having to like pry at their personal life, you know? And I think that that's really important. If they share something, you know, because they're struggling with something in their personal life, then that is a gateway for you to kind of speak into that and to share. But I think that just receiving like whatever it is that they desire to share, and just kind of not like, I mean, you can ask a clarifying question, sure, but to just remember that boundary of like, I am not here to be this student's, you know, best friend, and dive into all these, you know, things that probably wouldn't be the most prudent. But I also think it comes with what we share as educators. So if they, you know, come with a personal question or experience or whatever, I think just being mindful of like what I share, of like, if I can relate, that I relate kind of in a broad way, and not allowing them to also be like in this intimate part of my life or my story or whatever it may be. You know what I mean? And so I think that having that prudence and recognizing that, that like, I can have a personal relationship with you, but I don't need to ask all of these insanely clarifying questions to like go to the depths. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you want to share something, then okay. You know, and I can meet you there. But then, you know, if I share something from my own life or my own experience, or even an experience of a friend that I, you know, maybe journeyed with a friend through, that I think could help them, I just kind of try to keep it vague and not as, you know, into the nitty gritty details, to kind of maintain that prudence.
Because it's definitely I think it's the most difficult to do in high school as well. Because like college, you're all adults already. You can do whatever you got to do. Yeah. And elementary school is like, they're middle schoolers, elementary schoolers. Like, you're not going to, it's not as much of like a line that you need to intentionally toe. Because I don't know if this is something we can talk about on the podcast. We probably can. But like, I'm sure like you have to catch yourself at times of like, oh wait, no, like this is still, it's like a teacher-student relationship in a conversation. I've had to remind myself that of like teachers where I'm like, no, this teacher is not my best friend. They're my teacher. They care about me, but I just need to like, I need to lock in and remember that. And it's much more difficult because you're a real human. You're a human with good thoughts and opinions now, but you're still a child. You're still a high schooler.
Sure. And I think that it's hard too when you have that, because, you know, you are closer with some students than others, right? And so like when you have that, you know, personal relationship with them, and you care so deeply about them that you want to help them out and you want to help them, but it's like continuing to maintain that. I think that that's where you can get a little, you know, it can get more difficult, you know, to continue to have that, you know, student teacher kind of relationship, because it's like you see their good intent. It's always a good intention, right? You see their good intention to, you know, want to grow or to want to share something or whatever, but like you kind of have to guide that into a way of prudence and not and I think recognizing too that, you know, I have people outside of my school community and outside of high schoolers that I do share my heart with, and I do share my life with, right? And that, and having that is helpful, right? Because I'm like, I would not have the same conversations that I have with them, with my students, right? Absolutely. Because that's just too much. Like, that's just not really, you know, but then once the student graduates and you want to go have coffee, we can have, that's a little bit of a different conversation, you know, like I just did that this past week is with a graduating senior. who's about to head to college, like we grabbed a cup of coffee and we're, talking, whatever. And it's like, there's a little bit more freedom there now because it's like, okay, now we can have that type of conversation. And again, with a prudence, but,
but like you're adults now. Like you're both like grown humans. You graduated. Like
Correct. You don't need a permission slip.
Yeah. It was very fun for me when I, like literally the weekend after I graduated high school, one of my theology teachers was getting married, and I was like one of the 4 or 5 students who he had invited, who I was no longer a student. Yeah. But it was like immediately like my teachers button up. That's Mr. So-and-so. Like, do that. And then all of a sudden I'm at a wedding and like they're all dancing, and like it was very fun. Like again, nothing crazy, but it was just a very funny, like 2 weeks ago I was calling you by your last name, and now we're doing like the wobble dance together. And it was just very funny.
Yeah, but I think that there's opportunity for things like that because it's like, right, like you got to see your teacher's humanity. And so that's what...
It was a great experience.
Yes, like that's one of my favorite things is like, you want to go bump the volleyball or throw a softball? Like, let's do it. Like, we can just, fun fact, I do these things too. Like, you know what I mean? Of like, I go grocery shopping and you know what I mean? It's like, sometimes it's like, you don't think about, I know when I was in high school, I was like, clearly my teachers just live at this school. They don't really have a life. But it's like, they're sharing about their weekend and we have very similar weekends. Like, I also went to the beach and went to brunch with my friends, And so it's like, being able to like share that humanity and like, and I think that that's what's so opportune about our retreats, like, is being able to kind of, step away from the reality of the everyday life, and for, the kids to be able to see the teachers just in their humanity and just have fun and dance and, be silly and whatever it is, So I think that really is such a gateway to build those relationships as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's like entering into the humanity of it. And I think that's a key factor from what we were talking about earlier of like, being actually seeing, knowing, and loving all of these students when there are so many of them to do it with, and not just get like too corporal about it and too like systematic of like you almost pretend to see, know, and love them to move the relationship forward, where it's like that's how you keep it genuine. It feels like of like
and the reality is I can't reach every student. Yeah, like and I don't like, and I don't, but that's where I'm like, well, praise God that I work with these other people where it's not just on me. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like where they're not just going to like slip through the cracks or something like that, because I know that there are other, it's not just me on campus who's personally investing in students. Yeah. It's a whole collective. Mm-hmm. And so I think that, resting in that, knowing that, I'm going to try my best, but I'm also a human being who might not be able to have a personal investment relationship with 400 and some students, and you know what, they might not even want that. So it's like they might not click with me, and that's okay. But to know that, great, there's still other people who they can have that with, and I'm not the only one, is incredibly freeing. So.
I mean, I'd imagine it's I mean, it's the idea of like being free to flourish. So like you would almost think, it's like within the framework of the school, you're able to flourish. Whereas like some people might think, like, oh, there's more rules in a school. There's more boundaries. There's more of a schedule. There's more of like a job than like outside of school. But also there's the freedom to flourish within the framework that's been built for you. Yeah. That like as an educator, you're in a privileged position to be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, because they have to be there for the school day. But I mean, seriously.
Every retreat has a great turnout because they had to go on.
It's mandatory.
Exactly. Great. No.
But it's like,
we had 80 people this week.
Yeah. But it's like, that is incredible. Yeah. That's incredible that it is a mandatory thing. It's a harsh, mandatory, such a harsh word, I think, at first. Yeah. It's like, or one of our retreats is a graduation requirement, so it's like, whoa, but it's like, cool, great, that gets them there, but then it's like it just kind of gives the space for us to then have the opportunity to, okay, I'm here, so like I have to be here, so I might as well, and we tell them that it's like you can choose to enter in or not, and especially with like our 3-day retreat where it's like you can choose to enter in or you can choose to just kind of be here for 3 days, and there's and one's gonna, I think, give you a little bit more insight, or you'll have a little bit more of a good time. But so it's like having that mandatory within the school parameters is helpful a lot of times for me because it's like, okay, well, now they're here, and now that they're here, let's just do it. Let's have fun and let's just dive in, and so I think that is very helpful.
Yeah, I never understood back in high school, like guys who would be frustrated they had a mandatory retreat. Because I'm like, dude, it's even if you don't want to do this, you don't want to enter in, you're not religious, whatever. We'll change that, but either way, whatever. Like
Not religious yet. No.
Yeah, exactly. But like,
Yeah.
dude, you have 3 days off of school where
Right.
half the time we're playing
Yeah.
like frisbee and flicker ball
Yeah.
and like hanging out together. Like,
yeah. You
even-
get a free meal. You get to
Dude,
dress down.
I had like a friend of mine in high school. Like he was not into his faith at all. He was just a high school dude, super standard stuff. But he was like, dude, I love when we have retreats. Like,
Yeah.
I just get to go eat good food, hang out. Like, yeah, I
Yeah.
sit through a few prayer things that at the time he didn't really want to do. But
Sure.
he's like, dude, it's sick. Like,
Yeah.
it's awesome. Bethany Center in Tampa has amazing food.
Right.
Like, life is good.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I think
Yeah.
I liked it for the spiritual reasons as well. I ended up doing a bunch of retreats after to help out,
Yeah.
but still.
And I think too that there's an opportunity there because it's like sometimes they don't realize how intentional we are with the games that we play or the things that we do
Totally.
or whatever. And so it's like, it is fun. Like it is a great time. I love it, but
Yeah.
being able to like reference that or, whatever it may be, whereas like they're just entered in and doing it, but it's like from the outsider's perspective and having the like, the experience, knowing that like this is more than just having a little dance party, right?
Yeah.
Like this is freeing for a lot of people,
Yeah.
and this is walls coming down for a lot of people and stuff like that. Or just like, for one of our girls' retreats, we split them up and for the first night we did like hair tinsel, and the guys are playing spike ball like at their retreat. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't even know what they do there because I've never been to one, but I'm like, we're doing hair tinsel and they're like, yeah, we did not do that. And I'm like, well, no, I'm glad, but that provided we had like a girly pop night. That's what we called it. But it's like, they might not be thinking deeply about what's going on here, but it's like walls are slowly starting to come down and we're slowly starting to build this relationship with one another and just have fun and unconnected fun because we don't have phones. So it's like just to be fully present here with these other women and just do girls being girls, just hanging out, I think is like there's such an intentionality with all the things that we do, and I think that is a space where they're able to encounter that even if they don't know.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like that's the job of an evangelist in the education space is providing the environment for students to be able to encounter the Lord, which is the intentionality of the schedule, which is it being mandatory and is knowing and loving them beforehand and investing in them beforehand and being spiritually, like being prayed up by yourself beforehand, making sure that you're ready for it.
Yeah.
All of it is for the good of the students being in a conducive environment to love the Lord, to get to know the Lord.
Yeah. That's the goal. That's the desire.
Amen.
And it's not, we really don't have we can do certain things, but at the end of the day, one of my professors, I'll never forget, he was like, sometimes we just have to get out of the way of the Holy Spirit. And I'm like, we got to step out of the way. Yeah. It's like, we can do these things like administratively and practically and whatever, but at the end of the day, the desire is just for the Lord to move. And even if that's just one person, then job well done, Yeah. Thanks, Lord.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's just about as good of a podcast ending as anyone could get. I mean, get out of the way of the Holy Spirit, let the Lord do the work. And now we all know how, thanks to you. You're perfect. You have a perfect prayer life.
Yeah.
You
Don't write me down for that
student.
quote, though. I did not say that.
You reach every student. You came up with seeing, knowing, and loving students. You invented it. Yeah. I mean,
I'm in my third year, but I invented campus ministry.
You also invented campus ministry.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
Yeah, no, I'm humble about it. So.
Well, Hannah, thank you so much for coming on. This was amazing. To end the podcast, we clap at the same time.
Okay, cool.
We are